The 10 best African players in Premier League history. Who are they? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is a topic that we're going to be talking about in today's video. Obviously, as you guys know, I absolutely love my African football content every now and again. And as the Premier League is regarded to be the best league in the entire world,
the best league in the world,
I thought we might as well do a video that connects the two together. Now, of course, if you guys do want to see, Dugout Football Channel has also sent me a clip on who his top 5 African players in Premier League history are.
subscribe to Finn.
So of course, if you guys do want to see that, make sure that you do stick to the end of the video. But of course, without wasting any more of your time, let's jump into it. Now, jumping into our number 10 position. Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, this was an extremely difficult position to choose, maybe even more difficult than number 1. Because looking at number 10, to decide who makes it into the top 10 versus who just misses out, once again, it's a position that I'm going to get a lot of hate for probably. But I've gone for the Nigerian giant, Kanu, up front. Obviously, as we know, he was a 6'6" striker for Arsenal, although saying that he wasn't necessarily notorious for scoring a lot of goals, only 30 goals for Arsenal, but saying that he was also the kind of player who played behind the striker. He was more of a second striker option, and obviously just looking at him, whether he makes it over one or two other players in this list, it was extremely difficult to say, but obviously winning an FA Cup with Portsmouth, along with 2 Premier Leagues with Arsenal, he just made it into the list for me, which of course I also do want to say before we go further into the video, is all the players in this video, there are players who did well for these Premier League clubs. So for example, if you looked at a player like George Weah, although the only African player to ever win a Ballon d'Or, his glory days didn't come in the Premier League, so he won't make it in, although he was a brilliant footballer. I hope that did make a tiny bit of sense. If not, I don't know.
I don't know, Jeff, has it?
Jumping into our number 9 spot, we've got another heavily underrated player with defensive midfielder Mikel John Obi. As you know, absolute legend for Chelsea, played for them for 9 years and racked over 250 appearances.
Wow.
He was 2-time Chelsea Young Player of the Season, along with getting 2nd place in the African Player of the Year award. Once again, was one of those heavily reliable midfielders, but as he was part of such a golden generation of Chelsea, he kind of went underrated as they did have so many superstars in their squad. But as far as very reliable players go, he has to make it in there. Number 8 is next, and once again, the player I'm about to mention, absolute household name, as it is going to be Emmanuel Adebayor. Now, of course, whether it's for Arsenal, whether it's Manchester City, Tottenham Hotspurs, Crystal Palace,
It's worldwide.
the Togolese striker has made his name in Premier League football, obviously scoring 97 goals, making him the 4th highest scoring African player of all time in the Premier League. And once again, what a legacy he ended up writing. I mean, I did obviously do research before this video, and I saw quite a few articles write him as 1st place out of all African players in Premier League history.
Himself into further trouble.
I mean, he was good, but not that good. Jumping into that number 7 spot, which as a Manchester United fan is a pretty sensitive number for me at the moment.
And the topic for today's discussion is chest pain.
But of course, we've got Super Eagles legend Jay Okocha. Now, of course, as you guys know, this is the 3rd Nigerian player I've mentioned in the squad. And of course, he has to be the highest rated out of them. Although, no, he didn't win many trophies throughout his English professional career for both Bolton and Hull City. At the end of the day, Jay Okocha is a cult legend. He's one of those players that you don't just have to look at trophies, but his overall footballing ability, his skill, his technique. He was a world-class player and one of the best talents that Africa has ever produced. As I said, at the end of the day, I think it just goes down to the fact that he wasn't the most consistent player out there. But as far as a top talented African player goes, Jay Okocha has to be there. Jumping into number 6 on this list, which I am going to mention, I feel like it could be controversial. The fact that I haven't put him in my top 5 might cause a tiny bit of hate, as it is Riyad Mahrez. As we know, the Algerian winger, an absolute legend, African Footballer of the Year. As we know, he won the Premier League with both Leicester City and Manchester City, and that season Leicester City won the almighty Premier League in that magical season that no one thought could happen. Who was the player of the season? It was Riyad Mahrez, in a squad with both Jamie Vardy and Schmeichel, once again just showing the kind of talent that Mahrez had. No, he's not a 20 goal or 20 assist kind of player every single season, but he is one of those players who will score in those crucial games, and I think he's really written his name in Premier League history. As I said, it's very difficult for me not to put him in my top 5, but I have to at least put him in here somewhere. And that, ladies and gentlemen, takes us to our top 5.
Showtime.
And now, of course, before I give you my number 5, Doug, who did you put?
Hello, Finn, my friend. Hope you're well. I've had a wee think, and I've had a wee think about this one. So, my top 5, I'm going to go for 5 to number 1. So, number 5, I'm going to go for Yaya Toure.
Okay, so Yaya Toure definitely isn't a bad shout. To be honest, I think I have put him a tiny bit higher because in my 5th place, I've put Michael Essien. Now, of course, as you guys know if you've watched my channel for a while now, I absolutely love the Black Stars of Ghana, and looking at Essien, absolute superstar. And once again, a lot like McCullen, that defensive midfield position, was heavily underrated in a very golden generation Chelsea team. Looking at Essien, obviously 2007, he was the player of the year for Chelsea, was at the club for 9 years, was known as the Bison at Chelsea. What a cool nickname to have. He was brilliant in both defensive duties and attacking duties. I mean, he was one of those players who was just so complete as a footballer. In fact, he might be one of the most complete footballers in this list because defensively, he put in the hard work, but on the attacking front, if you needed a winning goal from a long-range distance, he was your man. Now, getting into our top 4, once again, before I give you mine, this is what Doug says.
Number 4, Riyad Mahrez.
Okay, so once again, Doug putting Riyad Mahrez in a very high position. Once again, I can't blame him. I also wanted to put him in my top 5, but in my number 4 position, I've got Yaya Toure. As we know, one of the most underrated midfielders in Premier League history. I mean, if you built a Premier League based 11 of all time, you could argue to put Yaya Toure in there.
Why would you say something so controversial yet so brave?
I mean, in terms of goals, in terms of assists, in terms of being a really solid holding midfielder, he was a man who could do absolutely anything. Obviously, the 13-14 Premier League season is where he really broke records, getting 20 goals and 9 assists that season. Once again, Yaya Toure was an absolute beast and will go down in Premier League history. And that takes us to our top 3, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this is a podium spot. This is where most pride seems to be held. And looking at number 3, once again, Doug, who did you put?
Number 3, Sadio Mane.
He's the best football player in the world.
I couldn't have said it any better myself, Doug, because I have also got Sadio Mane. I mean, 120 goals for Liverpool in the Premier League, 48 assists. I mean, looking at numbers like that, I mean, if he wasn't in such a powerful Liverpool squad with Mo Salah, I do feel like lots of people would have given Sadio Mane a lot more credit. Obviously, he came 2nd place in the Ballon d'Or, as we know, for Senegal, was an absolute legend. And let's be honest, he won absolutely everything there is to win at Liverpool. And that takes us to our top 2 positions, ladies and gentlemen, which, let's be honest, we all know who the top 2 is. It is between Didier Drogba and Mo Salah, which once again, I did ask you guys on my channel to decide who the best African player in Premier League history was. And I asked you guys to give me a reason, which, I mean, you guys did tell me who you think was, but I mean, let's be honest, your reasoning cannot be, I don't think a reasoning is needed.
You know what? Let's just agree to disagree, my friend.
It's kind of a cop-out answer. But of course, looking at the top 2, who is the best African player in Premier League history? Is it Drogba? Is it Salah? Well, of course, let's see what Doug says.
Number 2, Didier Drogba. And number 1, Mohamed Salah. Thank you very much, and subscribe to Finn. Cheers.
And to be honest with you, Doug, I think I completely agree. Obviously, guys, thank you so much for Doug. Please make sure that you do end up subscribing to him. I really do appreciate the support. He makes great content. But looking at my top 2, I've gone for the exact same. Looking at Didier Drogba, he was the ultimate big game player, and he was the complete athlete. He could do absolutely anything, and when he scored goals, they were big ones. I mean, 2 Premier League golden boots also isn't bad at the end of the day. But in number 1, I just had to put Mo Salah. Saying that, Doug is a Liverpool fan, so maybe there was a bit of bias there. But even as a Manchester United fan, looking at Mo Salah, you cannot not say that he isn't a world-class talent. He is now Liverpool's all-time top goal scorer in Premier League history, the top scoring African in Premier League history over Didier Drogba. Looking at Mo Salah, 3 golden boots. He's won absolutely everything there is to win with the club. And let's be honest, if he started his career in terms of form a tiny bit earlier, he could have been there in the Messi-Ronaldo debate.
You know, like if your aunt had balls, she'd be your uncle, but she doesn't, so she's not. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Which, as a United fan, it probably hurts me quite a bit to say that, as much as I would prefer to put someone like Igalo there from Manchester United. But looking at Mo Salah, what a legend. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for my top 10 list. As I said, if you can, or please do subscribe to Doug. I don't know what I'm trying to say there, as I do appreciate his input in this video. Of course, subscribe to this video if you guys did end up enjoying it. As I said, I want to make a lot more African content this year, and this is just the beginning of it. Guys, of course, make sure to leave a like down below. And if you disagree with anything I've said in this video, please do comment down below. Do you think I've made a mistake? Do you think Drogba is the best African player in Premier League history? Or do you think there's someone completely different there? Guys, thank you so much for watching. As I said, please do like, please do subscribe, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Cheers.